have to be ready, and in some cases, it's not going to be nice. The fight's coming to you on a whole different level. They're loaded for bear. Joe Resinello.
Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always.
They're not going to take this lying down.
On the Crusade Channel, always on air, and always online at crusadechannel.com.
Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And once more, dear brothers and sisters, oh man, are we going into the breach on the Crusade Channel.
Welcome back, everybody, to the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, as always, joined by Joe Resinello. And we are going into the breach, brothers and sisters. And you know what, Joe, what I want to do tonight on the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Let's talk about Democrats. Not talking, let's say, like we normally do, which is attacking them, all right, which they deserve. But what I mean by talking about Democrats is let's do to them what they do to us. They're constantly describing our party, our views, the conservative movement, the Catholic Church. They're just chock full of descriptions, okay, describing what we're all about. Well, you want to know what, Joe? They're not so monolithic. I mean, the wizard, all right, has now been exposed behind the curtain. We know that they're not monolithic. They've basically everybody in the middle or moderate is seated to the far left, Joe Resinello. All right. But guess what? They figured they'd try that. I hope for their own sake. Again, if they go down in flames, just, whatever. Okay. I don't care. If they fail as a movement and as a party, I don't care. But I would like to just describe what's going on that side, because you know what's going to happen, Joe? You're going to get defectors who are going to start to disassociate themselves with the psychotics. And right now, the monolith that you see, and the monolith they want to portray, Joe, is the view of the party from the point of view of the psychotics. Okay, then that's when I say psychotics, I mean Joe Biden. Okay, you actually have to have a mind to lose one. He doesn't even have a mind. Okay, but just throw him in there. Nancy Pelosi, AOC. Okay, Adam Schiff. All the rest of them. I mean, that's the squad. They're psychotic, and they want you to know that they're psychotic. But then you have a bunch of people in the middle, Joe, that are probably saying to themselves, look, I gave them their shot. I want to pull back from that. I don't want to be known as a Democrat that actually agrees with them, because I don't agree with them. And we're going to see how that plays out. Does that make sense to you, Joe Resinello?
Well, I'll be honest. Sometimes, like when we do our show, I try to appeal to sane people, objective people, independent people, because believe it or not, I mean, when you step outside of Twitter and various chat rooms on social media and you talk to people, again, I live in New Jersey, and while a lot of people vote for Democrats simply because they belong to a union, frankly, they're not that concerned about social issues. This is a lot of America. And there's a lot of people that, frankly, just haven't drank the Kool-Aid. And the Democratic Party, frankly, has lost them. This has been said. Van Jones just recently said this on CNN. And as he said that, I swear, I thought tears were going to go down the cheeks of the people sitting next to him, because he's right. James Carville has said this. He said the people in the South Side of Chicago do not speak the same language as the people at the University of Chicago. They don't want to get it. Now, let's just take it to Joe Biden. And we said, I mean, I don't want to get into I told you so. That doesn't really do anything.
Why not, Joe Resinello? Go ahead. Get into the I told you so.
Honesty, Joe Biden was the Trojan horse for the Democratic Party. So many people said, oh, he's a centralist. He's a controlled politician. And frankly, the cat's out of the bag. Kamala Harris cannot carry that party. They need the Trojan horse, because we've said this time and time again. Their greatest problem is the radical left. They control the voice of the party, and they don't relate even to Democrats.
But they've allowed that, Joe. Again, political decisions are decisions nonetheless, and as a party, they allowed that. They allowed Ilhan Omar and Presley and AOC and the rest of the psychotics to control that party. And then the so-called moderates, because they couldn't stand Donald Trump, they just jumped on board with them. This is of their own doing, Joe Resinello, okay? This is of their own doing. But guess what? I would never, probably in a million years, vote for Kristen Sinema, okay? I could vote for Joe Manchin because he's pro-life. And if I lived in West Virginia, I probably would vote for Joe Manchin, okay? To me, it's like, it's not even like saying, well, Joe Manchin, a conservative Democrat, does that make him a liberal Republican? Joe Manchin as a conservative Democrat is better than a liberal Republican, okay? Joe Manchin is a guy who is conservative on social issues. Now, my point is this. They've been getting a lot of press, Joe Resinello, because they're not going to do things that are, quite frankly, un-American. And the face of the Democrat Party right now, by any objective standard, is an un-American face.
That's no question. It's no question about it. If you're objective, and you're right.
And but this is, again, Joe, of their own doing.
Correct.
Their own doing. Because when you get up there and say, we don't like what the Supreme Court has done, we're going to pack the court, that's not American. They can say what they want about it. Ending the filibuster that's been there since before the War of 1812, okay? On important issues, you need a 60-vote majority in the Senate. That's not American. But they don't care about being American. But guess what? There's a lot of Democrats, Joe, that actually do, aside from Manchin and Sinema. So I want you to get into, for our audience here at the Crusade channel, okay? Biden got punched in the face, figuratively speaking, because Manchin and Sinema came out again, Joe. Again, because they're being put, because pressure's being brought to bear on them. They came out again and said, we're not going to support ending the filibuster so we could codify Roe versus Wade. And Sinema, unlike Manchin, is pro-choice, but she's not willing to end the filibuster. That smacks to me as being a little bit more American than being more Democrat. What say you?
Well, absolutely. I mean, listen, they want an ideological change. People have got to see this. You see, the outcome that they're seeing doesn't matter to them. They're trying to push America to the left. They want a more socialistic America. They do. I mean, period, end of story. Even with the gas crisis could stop next month.
Sure it can.
It really could. With the stroke of a pen, gas goes down $2. They're not willing to do that.
Right.
They're looking to change. And here's what they don't understand. And here's the bottom line. Cultures don't just change. We tried to do that in Iraq. It didn't work. It doesn't change. Listen, even Vatican II. Vatican II took place 60 years ago. And I've heard this said in different commentaries. It takes 100 years for a council to take root. People don't just don't. And this is the way it works, human nature. It's not going to work because even Democrats, and forget about independents, they have to mask their motives. And that's where Joe Biden came in. But the problem is this, the kimono is open.
Yeah.
And it really is. And proof is in the pudding.
I mean, Joe, real quick, they don't want, but here's one thing. They got their sycophants and their comrades in the media, okay, to make it seem like they're monolithic. They're not, and they don't want you to know about the title of this show, okay, that we're talking about tonight at the Frontline with Joe and Joe on the Crusade channel. They dare not mention this. They don't want to talk about this. You think that they want to trash Kristen Sinema? From my understanding, she's pro-choice. She's a bisexual. Okay, she's a senator from a red state. Okay, they don't want to talk about her actually talking like an American, respecting our institutions, saying, no, I don't want to add 6 justices to the Supreme Court. I'm not going to end the filibuster to undo what the Supreme Court just did. Supreme Court gave the legislative process back to the states vis-a-vis abortion. She doesn't want to end the filibuster that's going to make this legal on a federal level. I, again, don't know how all the minutia works. I don't know if they even passed a law on the federal level, if it's with this ruling from the Supreme Court. But nonetheless, is that when you look at people, and we're going to talk about a gentleman in a little while from Texas, okay? A Democrat, Joe Resinello, I'm going to hand it back to you. What they need to understand, and their comrades in the media, really, like you said, when you say the kimono's open, somebody ought to just go on the show and say, listen, you're not all unified. Not everybody thinks like AOC. Not everybody thinks like Ayanna Pressley or Ilhan Omar, okay, or Rashida Tlaib or Adam Schiff or
Most
Swalwell
don't,
or any
Joe.
one of these psychotics, okay? Not everybody thinks that way. We're going to shed light on Kristen Sinema, on Joe Manchin. We're going to talk about this representative from Texas in a little bit. And Joe, you remember I'm going to hand it back to you. Remember a few months ago before the election, or no, the last year before the election, and she's a congresswoman from Virginia. Now, she's a typical shrill liberal, okay? But she was on a conference call, and she said she was dropping F-bombs beyond belief. She's a liberal Democrat. And she said, you better effing stop talking about socialism. She's talking to other Democrats, okay? They were on a conference call. You better effing stop talking about socialism. Stop effing talking about defunding the effing police. You want to know why, Joe? Because she's not insane. She gets it. It's not, you know.
Joe, well, let's talk about Texas. You have what's his name, Henry Salar. Basically, he's a Democrat. He's a pro-life Democrat from Texas,
Right.
and he basically addressed AOC this week in the Washington Examiner, and he basically said, "Who she decide what's the standard to be a real Democrat? I'm an American, a Texan, and then a Democrat in that order, and I will continue to fight for Texas values and not let coastal elites bring their failed agenda to our communities." Now, let's be objective for a minute. He can get away with saying that in Texas because clearly, as a Democrat in Texas, you can't go too far to the blue because you're going to lose. Just like in Arizona, you can't do that either. Let's be honest. I mean, Sinema doesn't have that luxury.
But this guy is pro-life, Joe.
No,
I mean, even aside from not going to the blue,
but if he starts talking
pro-life
about transgender issues and guns and third trimester abortions, he'll be out of a job so fast he won't even friggin' know what hit him.
But Joe, real quick, but what I think is the real story here with this Henry Cuellar, I believe is his name. The real story is though, but he actually is pro-life. And probably
No. I'm just saying the radical
what I mean?
stuff. Like, yeah, like I give him credit to a degree, but I can't. It's not like he's doing that in Illinois, or in New Jersey, or in like Chris Smith in New Jersey. I give him credit. Never underestimate people understanding who they appeal to
Right.
keep their job. Never, because I don't trust any of them. There are very few servants, like servant-minded leaders.
Joe, I get you. I agree with you at the front line with Joe and Joe. Joe Pasillo, Joe Resinello, way in the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online. But here's the thing. I got to go, Joe. In my heart, I agree with you when it comes to the people we usually talk about on the show, okay? But check what this guy says, though. I mean, again, I want your opinion. I'm not telling you something. He said that if you look at what we do as members of Congress, you made a good point, Joe. We represent a district. She represents her district. I represent mine. But Joe, he's also a product of his district. So he goes on to say, because the thing is, a lot of people don't like to talk about, again, talking about the title of this show, which is the Democrats don't want you to know about this guy. Joe, he's not a state representative. He's in the United States House of Representatives. He said, because the things a lot of people don't like to talk about is the fact that not every Democrat is pro-choice. Okay? So the ones that aren't, we really need to assess if it's appropriate for them to continue to serve in 2022. Now, again, she's targeting him. AOC is targeting him, okay, because he has said, I am pro-life, and she's saying, kick rocks, and he's standing firm. So I agree with you, Joe. Usually they want to go along with what their constituents are saying, and they try to reflect their constituents. But I think this guy speaks from the heart. I think he truly is pro-life, and AOC is telling him, we don't want you in our party.
Well, I think he speaks from the heart too. I mean, what I will say is this: AOC does not reflect the Democrats across the country, and frankly, neither does New York. I say this all the time. I mean, New York is an anomaly when it comes to America. First of all, it's a melting pot. I've traveled this whole country. you will find, and this includes Chicago, this includes even LA. I mean, even though they say Houston is the most diverse city in America, believe it or not, it's the fourth largest city in America. New York is an anomaly. I grew up with all types of people: Jewish people, Asian people, Filipino people, Indians, Hispanics, Portuguese people, Cubans, Black people. Dude, you don't blink an eye at it. It's not, it's an anomaly. But here's the thing. AOC does not, her ideas, sane people who are not on Twitter, who spend too damn much time on Twitter, who spend too much time in chat rooms, frankly, don't relate to AOC. If you talk to a Democrat, even in a blue state, you talk to a Democrat and you mention some of the ideas that AOC has put forth, they're not on board with her.
Right.
I even heard de Blasio blast AOC when she pushed Amazon out of New York City. Cuomo called it political malfeasance. Those are his words. Andrew Cuomo called it political malfeasance. De Blasio blasted her. She is an anomaly, and frankly, she's a cancer in that party. If you're a Democrat, that woman, frankly, is dragging you down. She's a 40-pound plate on your leg in the deep end.
Joe, this is going to sound harsh. I want to come across the right way, okay? If a rabid dog, now I'm not talking about a human being here before we really get, their brains to fall out, as my mother would say at the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello on the Crusade channel, okay? If a rabid dog has cancer, okay, or better yet, a rabid possum, okay, then I want that cancer to eat that possum, and I want that possum to die. And what I'm equating here is a rabid possum with a cancer to the ideas coming out of this Democrat party, this Democrat party. Their ideas are a rabid possum, and if she's the cancer that's causing that party to die politically and culturally, then good. Then let her stay there and let them commit political suicide by keep pushing her forth as the face of that party. My attitude is knock yourself out. Every time they criticize Joe conservatives and say, well, is Donald Trump the face of your party? Well, when he renegotiated NAFTA, he was. When he stood up to China, he was. When he stood up for workers' rights, he was. When he nominated Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, and Amy Coney Barrett, and more importantly, stayed by them, yeah, he was the face of my party. I'll gladly say so. I'll say that to them right in the face. Can you say the same if you're a moderate Democrat about AOC and Presley and Omar and the rest of them? You go out in public and say, yeah, AOC, that little bartender actress from Queens, she's the face of our party. That's political suicide in Texas and many other places.
Here's the thing. The cancer in their party is the media, because they don't want to hear like people like, say, Van Jones, who spoke.
Well, Joe, do they work hand in hand real quick?
No, but here's the thing. They represent a small percentage of the party. You don't hear about this Democrat in Texas on CNN. You don't hear about Democrats in New Jersey who say work for UPS, who just want to, I'm not excusing their vote, but frankly are not socially basically aware. They just want to keep a job and they have a union job. They don't represent them. And this is the problem. The elites across the board are basically in cahoots with the media, and the media speaks these terms because here's the thing. The elites live in a bubble. Do you think that if you make, say, a couple $1 million a year, that $5 a gallon in gas affects you in the least? Do you think that your grocery bill, it doesn't? Do you even think that the schools that are putting forth these crazy ideas, your kids don't go to those type of schools?
Right.
Like, this is a bubble. And frankly, this is the problem in America right now. And I'll say it again. And I said it last week. Bernie Sanders gets this right. Special interests run America on both sides of the aisle. The Republicans and the Democrats, they don't speak for the people.
All right, but then obviously, okay, they've tried this. Now, Joe, you know as well as I do, there are people that we know in our lives who you and I wouldn't consider insane. But they are still more than willing to vote for the AOCs in their own party, even though the AOCs are.
I don't know if they'll vote for AOC, dude.
I know,
I'll be
Joe, I
honest with
got
you.
people in my family that are going to vote. Governor Murphy in New Jersey is a psychotic. He's one of the people that we call psycho evil. In other words, his ideas suck, whether it's abortion, transgenderism, the whole 9 yards. Joe, there are moderate Democrats in the state of New Jersey, and we know them. We have them in our families, and they're amongst the people we know that are going to vote for Murphy no matter what.
But I think
They take their
Murphy
votes
is a
for
far
granted.
cry from AOC, Joe. Like Murphy is a dog. Dude, he's a dog. AOC's insane.
Like, I think Murphy is too, Joe. With all due respect,
oh
I think
no,
Murphy's just as insane.
He's a dog, but he's a multimillionaire. He's one of those elites. His life, again, take it from his perspective. The problem is people trade a crumb for something much bigger. Like they want to keep their stupid little union job, frankly, and they trade in the soul of the country. I mean, keep this in mind, Joe. I mean, the most conservative states in America, South Dakota, North Dakota, and maybe Mississippi. Arguably, maybe those are the three.
I think Mississippi is, in fact, the most conservative.
But like if tossing it up there, those two, Wyoming's real conservative. Maybe it's 57% Republican, 43% Democrat. Right. That means in the most conservative state in the United States, over 40% will vote for a Democrat. That means that there's a lot of people in that state that you could speak common sense to, and AOC does not relate to them.
But they let her. But those very same representatives, Joe Resinello, those very same state representatives in the House of Representatives from a Democrat, let's say, if there are any from South Dakota, we know we're talking about Henry Cuellar from Texas, okay? But they're allowing AOC to be
it's the media that's doing it. Like,
but then they got around. Joe, here's my question. I want to get into this further. I want to roll up our sleeves here a little bit on the front line with Joe and Joe on the political end. Joe, November, no matter what happens, they're going to get trounced.
I agree.
Okay, the Senate could go as much 60 seats Republican. Let's not be pipe dreamers, but let's say we'll be in the high 50s. Okay, the House is going to be overwhelmingly Republican. Okay, are they going to regroup? Are the so-called moderates, the Henry Cuellars, okay, are they going to talk to some of their pro-choice people and on the more moderate end, say, look, we got to moderate our position on abortion. We have to stop with this idea that we're going to have abortion on demand. People don't go for it. Even pro-choice people don't go for it. I know atheist libertarians that I work with who said, number one, they applaud Roe versus Wade getting overturned, Joe. And then because they think it's a constitutional issue, it's a states' rights issue, and they say flat out, "Look, I'm pro-choice. I'm not for abortion on demand up to the moment of birth." These are not religious people. When are they? Are they? I guess is my question to you, Joe. Are they come November when they are going to get trounced? Okay. Are they going to go and back? Are they going to moderate their positions, or are they going to double down? It can't stay the way they are.
It'll take more than November,
or they got to moderate their positions.
It'll take more than November. It could take potentially 8 years of Republicans in the presidency. Then what will happen? It's like getting your ass kicked, in plain English. After a while, you just don't want to get your butt beaten. After a while, you reevaluate. Some people amongst you who want to win. It comes down to winning, right? You want to win. That's where a person with a clear mind basically says, listen, you're not going to win. Simply that. Let me put it as plainly as that. You're not going to win. You want to win, you have to change X, Y, and Z. And then you might win. And that's because you could only listen, Joe. Lies only go so far in life. It's like anything. We've all met liars in our lives, worked with them, dealt with them. At the end of the day, you got to be able to do the job. People can con their way into anything. And I've seen it. At the end of the day, you have to perform or you don't keep your job. Their ideas stink and they don't resonate. The problem is this: the media and the elites that control everything have fully embraced the AOCs.
Well, let's see what happens when the Republicans, see, remember something. People call me a Republican and I say, bite your tongue. Okay, I vote Republican because I'm conservative. And the fact is, I'm going to do my best to find out amongst my new friends who I've met here in Arizona to see who they're voting for. They're all Catholic. They're all conservative politically. They're all conservative, obviously religiously, more conservative to traditional Catholics. I'm going to see who they vote for. But my question is this. My larger point, Joe, Henry Cuellar, as a pro-life Democrat, I firmly believe this, could run and win in AOC's district. AOC could not run and win in his district. That's my view. I think in Queens, where AOC is, I don't think they're all fist in the air, abortion, 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 but they are Democrats. And I think a Henry Cuellar, who basically he said, this is what Cuellar said. I think this is very important because, Joe, I want to see an internecine battle in the Democrat Party. I think it would be fun for guys like us, number one. All right. But I think, if that party wants to even survive, as you're trying to explain to them that maybe they ought to rethink their positions. Here's what Henry Cuellar said. I would ask her, AOC, to look up the definition of a progressive in the dictionary. It says that a progressive is one is open to new ideas. The only thing wrong with some of these new progressives is that they're not open to new ideas. They're only open to their ideas. It goes on to say in the article that Cuellar represents a moderate, primarily Hispanic district in Texas. His voting record is consistent, Joe, with most Americans' views on abortion. Now, here's a point I want to kick over to you. He says, now we define ourselves a little differently here, you and I, but nonetheless, it's similar. He says, I'm an American, a Texan, and then a Democrat in that order, and I'll continue to fight for Texas values. Joe, a guy like that, if they want to propose some old-time Democrat values, okay, I'm still not going to vote for him. Him I could vote for because he's pro-life. But some of the more moderate on abortion, they better embrace what this guy's talking about, Joe, or I'm with you. I think a good solid dose of 8 to 10 years of being out of power is exactly what they're in store for.
They're not ready for it because the media is not ready to embrace it. Van Jones has also said this on CNN because it happened also in England in the Labour Party. The elites have alienated the working man in the party itself. They don't relate to, say, the union guy who's a cop, who is in the police union. That was a Democrat. It's no longer a Democrat. You lost him, and you need him. You need the Teamsters. You need the auto workers. They don't. Carville said it perfectly. He won for Clinton. He gets it. They're not in tune. You see, people who are outside of big cities, big metropolitan cities, they don't relate to these ideas. They simply don't. Life is different. You don't encounter these type of situations like the situation that happened at the University of Pennsylvania, all these elite kids. That doesn't happen in South Dakota. That doesn't even happen in Western New Jersey. Mm-hmm. They've lost the pulse of their own party.
Do they care, Joe? Does it strike you that they don't seem to care?
But when they lose, they won't. They will care. They need to get beaten. You see, listen, the media loves it. You watch, because I do flip around every once in a while and I'll listen to CNN and MSNBC because I want to hear what they're saying and their arguments. They are living in the chat room, in the metaverse. Their ideas are insane. To be honest with you, too many people are insane. I'm going to be completely truthful with you. And they don't resonate with normal working people. That's one thing Tim Scott says that I like. Common sense makes for common ground. Right. You're never going to have an extreme that's going to last long in America. The country is all over the place. There's too many different types of people. Like I used the example of Rick Santorum. I agree with Rick Santorum socially. He has no chance in hell to become the president in a broader scope. I am Catholic. I know I could obviously express my opinion. I could pray for the conversion of the country to a degree. It can get better. Could the church get stronger? Absolutely. But you will never see that type of like a Cardinal Burke Catholic as the president of the United States. Dude, Jesus Christ didn't even change the hearts and minds of people that he stood in front of, and he was God. Like, people don't want to bend their knee, including many in the Catholic Church. However, common sense makes for common ground. And
Well,
when
let
you
me
look
ask you this.
at
Let me
when
flip
you
it.
look at some of the apolitical issues here, which go across both party lines, crime, inflation, gas,
Teaching
and
boys they could be girls and vice
bingo,
versa.
bingo, calling parents domestic terrorists, that's an apolitical issue.
Right.
And until they drop this, you're losing.
Well, let's
I'm telling you right
Joe,
now.
then listen, let them shoot themselves in the foot. I would
Well, they
ask you
are.
this, though. I would ask you this, though. But let's remember something. We usually vote for a party, Joe Rossinello, that's notorious at shooting itself in the foot, usually because, they're in the bag too. And let's be clear.
Oh,
I
no
always want to try to
question.
emphasize to people, the Republican Party had better get through their heads, their heads, the politicians, the leaders. Okay. You better start sounding more like Josh Hawley and people like him. You better start sounding a little bit more like Donald Trump. Now, you don't have to tweet to 100 million people. Okay. But you better start sounding more like him when it comes to China, or when it comes to Canada and Mexico, when it comes to workers' rights. Yes, when it comes to abortion. Donald Trump, Joe, I've said to you before, I live in Arizona now. Okay. You know how many people voted for Donald Trump around here who are pro-choice, and it didn't bother them one bit when he said, I'm going to nominate people from this list because I want Roe versus Wade to get overturned. These people are not fist in the air. Abortion's legal, illegal. They don't care. They'll vote for a conservative anyway. Republicans need to get it through their heads, though. If you're going to continue down this road of not sounding on trade and workers' rights and things like that, of not sounding like Josh Hawley or Donald Trump or others in the party like that, then it's just going to continue to be the same thing. The Democrats who vote for you in the midterms, then they're going to turn around and they're going to switch back, and all the same patterns apply because all the same stupid ideas get rehashed all over the place. Whereas if you really wanted a lasting coalition of power, okay, you just got done. Listen, Joe, the Supreme Court, don't listen to them. The Supreme Court didn't do anything that's going to hurt the Republican Party. Okay. In fact, if anything, it's going to help, because people say, yeah, that's right. The Supreme Court took away my rights for the last 70 years, and I in the states want my rights back. If anything, it's going to be good for Republicans. But if they continue with the white shoe country club typical Republican, we're for business, and we don't care about China's atrocities, and we don't care about NAFTA and everything else, Joe, it's just going to be the same old story over and over and over again. And I think I think you're just giving the AOC's power when you do crap like that.
Well, the Republican Party has to, let's not even talk about the Republican Party. There has to be a politician that just speaks for people. Like, again, these people are owned. They're owned by special interests, Joe. The
Right.
Republicans are too. Let's be honest. Let's talk about an issue the Republican Party better get their act together, because I'm going to tell you right now, it's going to happen is if they don't fix the insurance situation, we will have socialized medicine. That's a lock.
Right.
That's a lock, dude. That's not an if. You heard it here. Because people need insurance to live, and it's becoming a situation where it's become a privilege. They better fix that. And frankly, they don't even talk about it.
Well, because the shame
they're
of
out
it
of
is, Joe, is
touch with people. They're owned by pharmaceutical companies. They're out of touch.
I agree.
Our political class, let's look at Congress. This is the House of the people. When has the approval rating, whether a Republican or a Democrat, has been in control of the Congress? When have they ever had over 50% approval? I can't even remember.
Not in my lifetime.
This is my point. They don't represent people, regular needs, neither of them. The Democrats or the Republicans, they don't. They're owned, all of them. And frankly, people are getting sick of it.
Well, when are they going to change that? I understand
what could change, I'll be honest with you, as my mother said today over dinner, a miracle. Maybe there's a miracle, because I don't think, politically speaking, listen, America, with all her flaws, and I have traveled to over 30 countries in this world, Joe. I have seen a lot of this world. I'm going to tell you this right now. I can't, and this includes Europe, and this includes Canada, and I've been to New Zealand. The opportunities that are available to an American are very unique, that are not available in other places. If you are willing to work hard, it's not easy. And I have seen this. No one can tell me different, because I've witnessed it with my own eyes, people I went to high school with, and I'm one of those people. I come from nothing, and I've worked for the biggest investment banks in the world. That does not happen in Europe. That does not happen in Canada. That does not happen in New Zealand. That sure as hell doesn't happen in South America. That is a unique aspect of America, and it's still there for people. It's slowly shrinking, though. But I will tell you this, with all the flaws of this country, if we don't, and politically, it's not going to get corrected. It has everything to do with the culture. It has everything to do with, frankly, the people shifting their gaze towards God. And then you will see things change. Families, until then, it's never going to get fixed.
I understand what you're saying. And but the problem with that too is, but then we sell our souls for the dollar. Look at Ireland's a perfect example. When the tech companies all went to Ireland, because Ireland dropped their tax rates all the way down. Okay. Now, this is a lesson for all of us. Okay. The corporations went in there, and the Irish people started to prosper. Then those tech companies said, we really need to visit your abortion laws. We need to visit your marriage laws. No, we need to visit that. This is Ireland, arguably the most Catholic country in the world, or at least a couple of points of history. All right. And they sold their soul for their nice paychecks, and they allowed the corporations to bully them. Real quick, Joe. They allowed the corporations to bully them on abortion and gay marriage and the rest of it. Okay. The Catholic Church and the problems in Ireland didn't help either. Okay. But my point is, I agree with you. There are many unique opportunities, but corporations shouldn't be allowed, because they provide us these good jobs, to get away with what they're getting away with.
Well, I think that's a fad that's going to fail. That's going to fail. But why was Ireland? This is what I want to revisit. Why was Ireland so Catholic? Because they were persecuted. Why is Poland now so Catholic, and the Polish who are here? Because they were persecuted. You see, right. God sometimes works in ways we don't realize. Maybe a revival will happen down the road. We just have to, frankly, suffer. Because people, sadly, that it's like in the Old Testament with the Israelites. There's just periods, peaks and valleys. People don't listen. They don't listen. And frankly, and even after people get burned, some people still don't listen. But ultimately, the solution is never going to be political. It's never going to be. I always say this. Politics is like a sandbox when you're a little kid. The strongest kid in the sandbox controls the sandbox. And then another kid comes in who's stronger, pushes him out, and then all the sand comes onto the other side. And then another kid comes in and the sand goes. That's politics. Politics, it's the heart of the people, where people have to look these people dead in the eye and be like, you're out of your friggin' mind. I'm sorry. You're out of your mind.
But Joe, but along the lines of what you're saying, is it encouraging to know? And we mentioned this last week at the Frontline with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello. We're way in the breach on the Crusade channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com. Isn't it encouraging, Joe, that if you do live in Texas or New Jersey or North Dakota, South Dakota, California, but isn't it encouraging to know that if the federal government now, because of the actions of the Supreme Court, that if the federal government was to pass a law, that basically the states now have been empowered, as they should be under our system of government, under our Constitution. The states are supposed to have powers, more powers than the federal government on many of these issues. It's encouraging that I think that I could actually make a difference in Arizona, almost to the point, Joe Rossinello, where I say, I don't really care who my U.S. House of Representative is, and I don't care who my senator is. Now I do, and I will vote in those races. But what's most important to me and my family, because of what the Supreme Court has done, is say, if I have Brnovich, who's a Republican here, and let's say Blake Masters as our senator, okay, I don't have to look at them in the face. In other words, I'll hold them accountable, but the real people I have to hold accountable are the people in Maricopa County who represent me at the state legislature. In other words, it's encouraging to know that the Supreme Court recently, and this is really, Joe, what has their brains exploding on the left, is that it's got less to do with abortion and more to do with the fact that the Supreme Court is saying, we're out of this. This is your business. We should have never been involved in this going back to the 1950s, and we're sending back that stuff back to the states. My point in bringing it up, Joe, along the lines of what you're saying, is that it's encouraging to know that we have a significant amount of our power back, because fighting on the state level now has become a lot more important than fighting on the federal level. Would you agree?
That it should be that way, but that's for now. And here's another thing: as cities, Joe, get smaller because of the way that business is done, a lot of the cities are going to spread out into other parts of this country, and the political dynamic is going to change. The country is in a
Okay.
shift,
Okay.
just like during the Industrial Revolution. People left farms and came into cities. Why? Because they had to work and they needed work. They went to Detroit, they went to Chicago, they went to Newark, they went to Patterson to work. And now what you're going to see, and dude, jobs are hybrid like structures now. People could live 100 miles from a city, and you're going to start seeing that. And as time goes on, you're going to see more of it. The country is going to change once again. Ultimately, I'm not looking for short-term fixes. I'm looking for big fixes. And politics is not the answer. Obviously, I'm going to vote as a Catholic. I always have, and I'm always going to. But the solutions are not even on a federal, like from a federalism perspective. The solution is to convert the country. And that lies directly with the church and its hierarchy. Someone said this in one of our interviews. The country is as strong as the Catholic Church is strong, and she is weak.
I agree
You
with
know,
that.
I was driving yesterday with my wife through Teaneck, New Jersey. It's a predominantly Orthodox Jewish community. And you know something? It was so beautiful to see. It was Saturday. All the families out walking to the synagogue, young families, old families, grandfathers with their sons and their grandsons in hordes. And they don't even have the Blessed Sacrament. They outdo us. That should be every parish in America, and it's not even a fraction of it.
Well, Joe, you're right.
We're our worst enemy.
I agree.
And
But
until that gets fixed, don't expect the politics to be fixed.
no,
Don't
no, I
expect
don't want to give you the wrong impression, Joe Resinello. I don't want to give you the wrong impression. Okay, I was making my point in agreement with what you're saying. The politics are important. Voting, being active. Joe, you did a video last year when they wouldn't let you fly the pro-life flag over there in what was it, Lyndhurst or North Arlington or
Rutherford.
Rutherford? Okay, so you know how important the politics are. However, I agree with you. Okay, I think that before the conversion, we have to fight the cultural battle. I think the bad ideas that have seeped into the culture really have to be attacked. We're going to get into that in a little bit in our last segment. But let's real quick segue. Before we segue into that, I do want to put a finer point and a quick comment from you. All right. This is what I don't know, Joe Resinello. I don't know if you want to get elected in San Francisco, if you want to get elected in a big college town, okay, where they don't really like America too much, I might agree. If you're a Democrat, though, in Detroit who worked for the car companies, I got to believe you love your country, okay, and a lot of other industries. The Pima County, Arizona Democrat Party, they got busted. They got busted, thank God, okay? They put up a post on Facebook and Twitter that said F the fourth. Now, I don't need to get into the whole story, okay? But this was the Pima County, Arizona Democrat Party, and they had a meme up there, and it said F the fourth. Joe, I'm going to kick it to you, but then we're going to move on to our next topic. If you want to get elected dog catcher, I really don't think on the 4th of July you should put a post on Twitter and Facebook saying F the fourth. Just me, Joe? Maybe I'm wrong.
That's sadly a lot of people think like that. That's the AOC crowd. They don't believe in the institution of America. You see, I do. I do.
Right.
Is it perfect? No, but I do. You know something? Like I said, it worked for me. I'm the son of a barber. I'm 100 years the grandson of a farmer in southern Italy. And it worked for me. Hard work and you're putting your nose to the ground, family values, family sticking together. And it can work for you. They don't believe in it. And I'm going to be honest with you, it's a sad, sad state of affairs, because I'm going to tell you this, coming from a guy, I've seen the world. Go to Paraguay. I've been there. Go to India. I've been there. Go to Haiti. I've been there twice. Go to parts of Europe. The only people that thrive are elites, people who get like a 13 something and above on their SAT, or who are rich. Do you think in the Philippines you're getting a college loan? Do you think in the Philippines you're getting a business loan to start a business? It doesn't work that way. And people don't get it. They don't get it. In plain English, are there problems here? Oh, yes. Could we get better? Oh, yes. Should we turn to God? Frankly, that's up to the Catholics. We have to be leaven. I invite all people to read Chaput's book, A Post-Christian Society, and also Give to Caesar unto Caesar and Give to God what is God. We're supposed to be leaven in the world. And you talk about apolitical issues that resonate with all people. I'm going to tell you how to resonate with people, both traditional Catholics as well as liberal Catholics. Living a self-sacrificial life resonates with people. It stops traffic. And until the Catholics begin to start doing that, nothing is going to change.
Joe,
not in the church or in the country.
Joe, I'm not going to disagree with you on that at all. Okay, but one of the things, look, I'm not going to judge them, and I know you're not either. They're liberal Catholics. God bless them. You're going to have to stand before Christ, as I will too, and I'll have to answer for my sins, or you're going to have to answer for yours. But these people are delusional. I got into a little back and forth, and he hasn't responded with Mark Shea. I think Mark Shea is really not a nice guy. I think he's a very uncharitable man.
Who is
he? Says basically Mark Shea's a liberal Catholic. He's had debates with different people like Chris Ferrara and Michael Voris and Michael Matt. And he's being very unfair. I used to give him a little bit more credit. Mark Shea's being very unfair. He's basically saying that if you voted for Trump to overturn Roe versus Wade because of the judges, that you're part of a MAGA antichrist movement. He's very, very, very uncharitable. Okay. And he's the type of guy that, like, well, let me not get into that. That's a conversation for another day. Maybe he'll get back to me. Maybe somebody who knows him will flip him this video. I offered for him to come on the show and tell us how, if we voted for Trump for judges because we wanted to overturn Roe versus Wade, basically saying that we're part of an antichrist conspiracy. And he's not one of those conspiracy nuts. He's just a liberal. Okay. But anyway, let's talk about the need to go on the offensive. Joe, we need to change the culture. We know that. I think by changing the culture, but one of the ways we're going to do that, okay, is we need to go on the offensive, and we have to, at the very least, stop being cowardly in the face of all this garbage that's going on out there. And it is garbage. And I'm of the opinion, Joe, we don't have a lot of time left at the Crusade channel, always on air and always online, few minutes left. But conservatives, particularly conservative Catholics, aside from what we do, Joe, in the church, which is adoration, confession, Eucharist, we know the formula. The formula is Christ left us a very simple formula. Having said that, conservatives in general, cultural conservative, culture warriors, we need to start pushing back harder against these pride parades and things like that. Because, Joe, not for nothing, they do things that are so outrageous. You would think, I really need to defend myself if I attack this stuff, this nonsense that they're doing. Unfortunately, we've become so coward by the cultural left, we're afraid to open our mouth, even when guys have their junk hanging out on the side of the street at one of these so-called pride parades. But talk about that a little bit. I think we need to go on the offensive. I'm tired of being on the defensive.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think it's proven that the offensive works because it's been proven that it wins in the courts. We've seen that. It works. It's like walking through it's how you do it, obviously. Even people, speaking of this story, I mean, it's Jonathan Van Mar in LifeSite News. He's talking about basically some of these pride parades are pretty vulgar. And they are. You see guys on all fours with dog masks
They're
on.
obscene, Joe
I mean, like,
Rasinello.
it's absurd. You see these pictures, and frankly, I'll be honest with you, even if you're for same-sex marriage, I don't know how anyone would subject a child to such insanity. I mean, you see pictures of this, women with their shirts off, like men. I mean, like, even if you're for that, and obviously we're not, but if you are, clearly that's not for the eyes of children. And
Right.
you see, and here's the thing about the offensive. It's like there's levels to it. Speaking up is a good thing. We have to speak our mind. We have to speak the truth. Taking them to court is no, actually before that. Boycotts, another good thing. Sacrifice, a good thing. Fighting in the courts, voting, putting politicians. But what's going to change the minds and hearts of people? You see, that's where the offensive, and I'm going to be honest with you, this is where I don't agree with you, Joe, because the most offensive thing you could do is to try to become a saint. That's more than talking, 100 times more than talking. When you live a sacrificial life, you could talk all you want and they'll ignore you equally as much as you talk. But it transcends the political hats.
Joe,
We have to be willing to lay our lives down in a sacrificial, where I'll be honest with you, I'll use you as an example. Say you fostered 10 kids, 10, and your family, who thinks just like mine, thinks crazy things. How are they going to say a damn thing about you? How? How could they say a damn thing about you? If you basically live a radical life, radical Catholic life, they can't say a damn thing, and you will change people, just like Malcolm Rutledge changed. That's the most offensive thing you can do, and we're not willing to do it. Know why? Because it hurts. We're not willing to do it because it's uncomfortable. And until Catholics do, nothing's changing. Stop talking. No one's listening.
Yeah, but Joe, do we not act in the public
you
square?
didn't hear me. It's levels. It's levels. I'm talking about dropping the atomic bomb, trying to change the culture. It's levels. This is acting, but there's a big difference between me and, say, the Franciscan friars of the Renewal living in Newark and sleeping on the hardwood floor.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big difference. And this is where we have to act. That's the most offensive-minded way to act, is to live counterculturally like Christ did. And then we'll change the culture. Then we'll change the politics. You won't even have to say anything, because people will be afraid to say anything against you, because your life will speak loud. But we're afraid, and we don't do it because we don't believe in God as much as we say we do. Because if we did, we would take him at his word. But we don't. And that's why we have to pray. And that's why we have to get holy, or nothing changes. Zero.
Well, Joe,
Zero.
Listen. Ultimately, when it comes to the end game at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo and Joe Rossino, Joe, I couldn't agree with you more. But I'm going to disagree with you. There still is, but I'm still not going to let them do whatever they want in the meantime. I'm not.
No, I didn't say that.
I'm not saying you are saying that, and I do want to live a sacrificial life. But the fact is, they have too much power. You see, you know about Maximilian Kolbe because somebody told you about Maximilian Kolbe. If you got shot in the head tomorrow in the public square defending your belief in Jesus Christ and the media doesn't cover it, then nobody knows about it. That's my point, is there still are measures that we need to take, both on this in the culture war, Joe Rossinello, okay, and in the political arena. Ultimately, I agree with you that self-sacrifice is really what moves people's hearts, okay? But until people's hearts are moved, okay, we still have to get the message out there. There is still a cultural and spiritual battle that we're engaged in. Now, part of it is that self-sacrifice that you're talking about. I think the major part of it is that nobody's going to listen to us, Joe, if I'm going out and, let's say, for argument, I don't know, a public sinner in some sort of way and being called a hypocrite. Nobody's going to listen to me or you if that was the case. We do need to strive to live holy lives. I don't disagree with you for a second. But, Joe, the people that did that in the last 50 years, all right, particularly those people in the pro-life movement who bore witness, did both. I guess that's really what it comes down to. They lived a life of, let's say, where you couldn't accuse them of anything. In fact, if anything, you could accuse them of being holy people, while at the same time they put on their combat boots, so to speak. You know what I mean? Figuratively, combat boots, and got out in the culture war. Joe, we got about a minute left, so I want to kick that idea over to you. They did both at the same time.
Well, obviously, you have to speak. I mean, clearly, speak from the pulpit. We have to teach our kids. That's a given. But ultimately, we have to act. And I'm talking about the issues. Again, there's certain issues that relate to people on both sides of the aisle. The economy. It's an apolitical issue. It's not just a Democratic issue. It's not just a Republican issue. And it moves people. Words move people to a point. Even the best arguments, the best presentations, and this is everywhere from Hawaii to Maine. We are the leaven. Jesus said so. The Catholics, we have all the tools, the sacraments. We better start using them. Right where you are, start using them. And you have to show people the sermon. You have to show people, and then they'll listen to you. And then the politics will change, and then the country will change. And it could happen. You see, that's another thing. It could happen. It has happened in other countries, and it could happen. Do we believe in God? Do we take him at his word?
We say we do in
Well,
America.
Then we got to start
do.
acting like it.
I agree.
And when we do,
your example of what you said,
we get outdone by everybody, Joe. I use the example of the Hasidic Jews. They outdo us. That could be every parish. They outdo us.
Well, Joe, I'm going to say this in fairness, and then we got to sign off. But I'm going to say this in fairness, and I agree with you. And in fact, a lot of those Hasidic Jews spoke a little bit like us in the past and had been attacked by other secular Jews and by the liberal media, or at least they weren't paid attention to when they were attacked for standing up for family, especially in the state of New Jersey. We covered that before. But in fairness, Joe, amongst the 30% of Catholics in America that do believe in the real presence, you have that, Joe. You have that. You're an example of that. I am too, to a degree. Okay. I have one foster son who's hopefully going to become adopted, and I'm going to get another one. Okay. So that's the route I have to go. You have 5 kids. I go primarily lately. I've been going to Latin Mass, Joe. That's all I see is big kids. So what I would tell you is a big family, excuse me. What I would tell you is this. You're right. The Jews do it, but they're a small remnant of the overall amount of Jews in America. The Catholics do it, but we're a smaller remnant of the overall Catholic community in America. My point is this: where we have overlap, I think we fight with them against the enemies of our souls, the enemies of our children. Okay. And yeah, live by that example. I agree with you. Rabbi Yehuda Levin, how many kids does he have? 17. Okay. We interviewed him a while ago. Okay. How many children do you have, Joe Rosenthal? 5. Having gotten married at what, 44 years old? Again, we're doing it, Joe. And my larger point is I think we do both at the same time. Unfortunately, we have to leave it there at the Crusade Channel, always on air and always online at crusadechannel.com, the last live radio station standing. Thank you all for joining us at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. Remember, follow us wherever you find us on social media, primarily Frontline with Joe and Joe on YouTube or the Frontline TV on YouTube. Like, subscribe, share. Do all that fun stuff. And remember, until the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We will talk to you soon.